Now, what do you think about this whole flat Earth theory thing that's all over the internet?
Well, you're going back to something that I had put aside back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was looking into a lot of the information that was there in the Lucius Trust, and an old white gentleman by the name of Boris over there at the Theosophy Lodge, when they were giving me old maps, dusty books and stuff for me to look through. You have to go back to the fact that and again, I have to look at these things and tell you my history with this particular thing. I first was given information regarding that by two gentlemen that I invited to my gatherings of the Masters in Brooklyn. These were two Europeans by the name of Preston Nichols and Al Bielek. And at the time, I was speaking about the perception of a what they call flat Earth. We knew it as a flat plane, not a flat Earth, or a plane of existence, because again, we are limited by the language and limited by the education that we've been given to describe the reality that we're in. So I have to speak in words that can actually vibrate to the understanding basis for your education. So when people talk about flat Earth, flat Earth, that's just a misnomer. It tends to incite the ridiculous in someone's mind. So when I'm speaking about that, and for you to understand the so-called flat Earth theories, you have to deal with it from the perspective we do at our university. You cannot deal with it based on what you see on the internet. You have to look at it based upon the ancients and not what it is that your education has made of your reality today. You cannot look at knowledge like this through the eyes of the education that they gave to you. You have to go back to the science that the ancestors gave to you thousands upon thousands of years ago to see what that really means. Now, you have to look at it before the time of the Vatican and before the time that Christianity through Catholicism began to come to prominence, because the origin of the so-called round or globe Earth actually happened based upon the Vatican. The arguments regarding that shape of that Earth, they were still arguing about it up till that time of the 16th century, whether it was flat or round, because they were looking at the information that was put down by the ancient Kemites, the ancient Dravidians, the ancient Olmecs, and everyone who existed on the Earth before the Europeans. Now, what they were arguing about was how many secrets can we actually keep if we put out one or two perspectives. If we keep the flat Earth perspective, quote unquote, how many secrets could leak as a result of that? And can we keep the animal in the cage with that perspective? No. So what they did was they had to hide the information. The Vatican had to make sure that the information was hidden. How did they hide it? They made sure that the so-called conjectures of the day, which is the Earth is round, the Copernican one, became the mainstay. So they began to promote that into the lexicon. And of course, they were running all of Western civilization's education system. They took the Copernican idea, which was to the Earth being round, and promoted that into, from that point forward, into the Western education system. So that's all we ever knew. The information that would have led you back to your ancestors, they put on hold or made ridiculous, so that the children in subsequent generations, as I was speaking about that thing about promoting the blurring of the gender line, the destruction of gender, that every generation after that they've conditioned into that will only know that as the reality. It's the same thing that happened when they suppressed all information that had to do with what became the Kabbalistic understanding as well as the Kemetic understanding of how our world or our reality really was. So in injecting that so-called round Earth at that time, they then now created the obtuse environment for us to operate in. And since everything from that point forward consolidated knowledge around that No, and reintroduction of the ancients information sounds ridiculous. So the introduction of ancient information into a Christian church would sound like Satan coming in. So for me to actually speak to you about that, I have to get real deep and metaphysical, the way we teach at our university, and I'm not sure, what that means, and if it would be open for today. I'd have to go to Hermetic astrology, the Hermetic system, versus the what we call the tropical system that is dealt with in the West. If you want to look at it like this, and I'm going to do this very quickly so that people can get an understanding of what it is that I'm looking at and how I see it. Everything is a vibration. Everything is vibration. And if you understood the fact that everything is done in waves, these waves each are a point of conditioning for the solidification of what we call divine intent. I'm going to get pretty heavy here, taking you into the first, second, and third levels of what we teach. If I want to give you a better access to it, because you couldn't get any other access to what I'm speaking about from the Kemetic principle, but I would do it so that you could see it through what would probably be the Kabbalistic principle, because the Kabbalistic was actually stolen directly from the Kemetic principle. There are three principles in God: the Father, Son, and the Mother, Father, Mother, Son, and Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, or whatever they want to speak about it today. But it was also known as the Ayin, or what they call Amen, but it's Ayin. Then there was the Ein Sof, and then there was something called the Ein Sof Ur, which is essentially the three stages of the expression of the mind of God. Okay? Now, in the expression, when there is to be the expression of the mind of God, when intention is looking for manifestation, it deals in consolidating these intentions into waveforms. So the best way to you to see how the earth is actually consolidated is to see it in the chart that created the 10 Sephiroth. And the 10 Sephiroth essentially give you the first three, and then they go down into the last 7. But just to give you an understanding of it so that people can go and do their own research on it, your Bible, which is taken from Kabbalah, is giving you little hints about that as well when they start speaking about the firmament and they start speaking about the different spheres of existence and so forth. Well, the spheres that have that firmament in Kabbalah is what we call the octave. That's the 8th sphere, because the octave essentially is the harmonic upon which God's creation becomes manifest. Otherwise, it's just waveforms and intention. Okay? Who are following me. Now, to understand that, you have to understand that by counting it as the 8th sphere, you have to look at it in reverse, because we are actually occupying the realm of Malkuth. The realm of Malkuth is the realm of what we see as the consolidated earth plane. And if you were to look back from the realm of Malkuth and count 8 spaces back from Malkuth upward, you would see it would come to Bina. Okay? Now, Bina is the feminine principle. Counting 8 from 10, you go up to Bina. And who's Bina? Bina is the feminine principle. In Kemetic, she is Mut, or Nu. She is the mother, the great sea. That's where they talk about the ocean in the Bible, that being the ocean above. The primal essence filling the entire omniverse. And it's the fundamental essence of the universe before it becomes solidified. She is the sphere, what can I say? She's the sphere of magnetic cohesion. In other words, nothing can take place outside of this sphere unless it goes through the sphere and becomes magnetized, consolidated. In other words, atoms cannot consolidate into bodies unless it is actually filtered through this particular sphere of existence. And this is the Nu. This is Nu. She's the stabilizer, the organizer of all life. So when we speak about the firmament, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about 10 layers, 10 different compression zones of cosmic activity that are pressurizing us into the atmosphere that we see, that we live, move, breathe, and have our being. Okay? So if you want to deal with that, she now is actually above Shu in the ancient Kemetic. Shu is the air. Shu stands for the vibrational counter pressure to Nu. And so that vibrational counter pressure to Nu gives you the atmosphere in which we breathe. So now we're actually giving you how this so-called dome structure that these people on the internet are speaking about. There's no dome. There are pressure zones of activity where there is a consolidation of intention that we see as magnetism and electricity, and we process them through electricity and magnetism as they manifest as our senses. Okay? So just to pretty much give you an understanding about the next stage up, if you want to deal with the ninth sphere, which is above the eighth sphere, which is above the firmament, the ninth sphere in Kabbalah would be Chokmah. And again, I'm dealing with reverse. This is the secret. You don't just go from the top down. You have to go from the bottom up because that's where you're operating from. You're operating from Malkuth. You're not operating from Ketha. You're part of Ketha, but you're not operating from there. You have to talk your way back. You have to access your way back to it. That's the process of the Creator coming into the knowledge of itself. Okay, so the ninth sphere is that place where, let me see, what can I say? It's the Ethereum. It's where the cosmic mind coagulates from its source as light and sound into what we call the qualified vacuum of space-time. Ethereum is like where time becomes the qualifying element for all manifested existence. In other words, without the Ethereum, there is no time. Time is an element. It's not just you ticking on the clock on your wrist or on your wall. It's an element that consolidates all things into existence. Without time, no existence happens. Okay? So I'm giving you some real quick things for you to understand about this whole reality that we're in. The flat earth, the whole 9 yards. Our globe, what you can see right there is CGI. It's a computer-generated image. It's animation. It's all Photoshop. There's no real picture of our earth. Okay? It's all game. So they're never going to show you what it is that they cannot show you from above. Now, of course, let me just say this. Now, they've been killing off a lot of astronomers. A lot of astronomers have been dying. Yeah, a lot of people dealing from astrophysics have been just suddenly dying. Crashing, somebody killed, stabbed some dude, I think he was an Australian guy, stabbed him 147 times. That was definitely ritual. So what I'm looking at now is that whoever's looking up at the sky, based on the fact that these periscopes and telescopes are getting 10 times more powerful each time, they're seeing something that they're not supposed to report back on. Now, the trick is to get you to believe that they're looking at Nibiru. So if they're looking at Nibiru, are they actually looking at Nibiru, or are they looking at this compression zone? Now, this is the other thing. And I'm going to close out with this so we can move forward. All around the earth as we see it today, there are stories in the ancient text about floods. Floods. Now, above that pressure zone that we spoke about, that pressure zone of the ninth sphere that we spoke about, going into the eighth, that pressure zone of the ninth sphere is compressed hydrogen. This is my theory. It's compressed hydrogen. Now, with the movement of space-time, did we, the reason why we're trapped here and kept in ignorance, did we somehow breach and found a way back to the gods and did something to pollute that area so that what happened was God wound up and pitched a stone and cracked that sphere, the hydrogen, the compressed hydrogen, and it fell to Earth 40 days and 40 nights? Now, just think about that. Because they gave you clues, of course. I don't know. Did you ever see that movie, Avengers: Age of Ultron? Right. Remember when Ultron said something? He said God just got sick and tired of everything, and he just cast a stone. He cast down a stone, and just wiped everything out. And he says he's about to wind up again. Well, supposedly Nibiru, or Planet X, or the original Nibiru was actually called Holukubus, I believe, and it was found by a Chilean scientist, and it was this Chilean scientist, I forgot his name, it'll probably come back to me, but this Chilean scientist came up with this. He saw this thing, Herliculus, Herliculus or Herbiculus or whatever his name is, but it was Planet X, and he said it's coming in, and that might be the stone that was thrown to end whatever is going on here, because man has become so sophisticated that he's trying to break through that ceiling again. And the prisoners, you know, when they tell you, there's another one called Escape Plan, that movie with Sylvester Stallone. If you look at the metaphysics of Sylvester Stallone's movie, Escape Plan, you see that he was in an inescapable prison, and where was he? He was in the sea. And he didn't know he was in the waters.
Right.
He broke through to find out where he really was. So are the wardens now, because we broke through the last time and whatever it is we were doing to mess with that space and to mess with the continuum that was created here as an Eden for these souls to come in and enjoy life and to process God's own reality back to himself, herself, so that she can actually participate in his and herself through us. And are we messing that up? Somebody had gotten into the laboratory and began messing with the chemical formulas and mixtures. Is something getting, are they trying to not get us to see Nibiru? We're supposed to be coming in March and April, sometime this year. Did we see the stone that's been thrown in order to end us, to start us afresh, to start us anew? Or are we actually looking at the firmament, which is the dome of energy, not a dome that's a glass, but a dome of energy that is in layers of compression that create what we call the third dimension or third density, fourth dimensional consciousness for us to participate in third density. So all of this is part of what we teach at our university. It's you becoming deconditioned or to become deprogrammed and to decompress from the nonsense that has been given to you as your education.
Well, man, to everybody listening, man, if that didn't make you want to sign up to this brother's university, I don't know what will, man. God, I'm glad I got that out of you, Dr. Valentine. Oh, that was amazing, man. Oh, man, that was deep. I'm gonna have to, after this interview, I'm gonna have to rewind that and listen to that a couple of times, brother. Oh man, I mean,
I couldn't give this back then and to speak on it, but I had to toe the party line, so to speak, from in the early 90s to maintain it, because, when people are not ready for it, they're not ready for it. And I was told by these two European gentlemen who made it out there, who understood the occult and were dealing with the occult through technology, that there are certain things that you're going to have to be very cool with and not say until it's time. So I pulled that particular plug, and I pulled a couple of plugs, just like I pulled the plug on the AIDS thing when I came out in 1985 and showed that it was a hoax. Then my life was threatened, my whole way of dealing with things. I had to back until young people began taking the information that I was able to get out there and began to start, saying, well, hey, look at this makes sense, and so forth. But as far as this, you can look at flat Earth, but if you do look at it through the eyes of those who are arguing over what science says it is and what it is not, you will never get it.